Good evening. My name is Katie Wesney, and I am delighted to be with you tonight. Today's webinar follows the OCR announcement today, so it stayed the same at 2.25%. So it stayed the same, but gosh, hasn't the environment shifted? We've got inflation pressure rising again, higher oil prices, disrupted supply chains, and inflation's actually expected to lift further. That's showing up in, I don't know about you, fuel prices, food, transport costs. Rate cuts are really no longer part of what's going to happen this year, which makes this a good moment to step back and ask, does your current plan still work if rates stay where they are or edge up? So this session is about building wealth that holds up in uncertain conditions, which we certainly have now, not by reacting to any headlines, we're not interested in that, but by getting the foundations right and playing the long game. So that's what we're going to focus on together tonight. You'll notice there's a wee question box at the bottom of the screen. I've got a wonderful producer, Emma, who has sat back in the background for us producing tonight. She'll collate any questions you have, so jot them in the box. And we hope this to be done and dusted within 45 minutes. I will speak at pace, but again, want to make sure I cover off any questions that you have. So please take this opportunity. Right, you may be thinking, who am I to tell you what to do with your money? So my name is Katie Wesney. I am the National Coaching Lead at Enable Me. Been here for over a decade now. I am a chartered accountant as well as a qualified financial advisor. I have built and sold my own successful business, worked across Europe, US, and New Zealand. I'm a columnist for Stuff and a media commentator. But my day job at Enable Me is to optimize outcomes for my clients and help them reach their financial potential. So first, a wee disclaimer, this presentation is for informational purposes only and does not constitute individual financial advice. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're at. I don't know what your goals are. I would love to know your goals. I would love to help you. And to that end, we have an offer at the end of this presentation. So make sure you stick along to the end. A little bit of a carrot there for you. So OCR stayed at 2.25% today. What did change is the context to which it was made. So if you don't know, the OCR signals direction. It does not dictate what banks do. Lending rates are influenced by lots of things, global markets, funding costs, inflation, and bank margins, not just this number. But what has changed is the inflation backdrop. So we've got the Middle East conflict, higher oil prices, disrupted supply chains, and rising inflation expectations. The RBNZ is now forecasting inflation lifting meaningfully, and that matters because persistent inflation keeps interest rates higher for longer, but you will also feel it in any inaction. So if you have any funds languishing in savings, when we have higher inflation, they will be worth less in the future unless you invest them wisely. And I think if the plan relied on further rate falls, it's really time to stress test that assumption. And I think this is where lots of people get distracted. They're watching OCR announcements instead of focusing on what actually moves their outcome. The real question isn't, what did the OCR do today? The question you should be asking yourself, and I want you to be asking this throughout the entire webinar tonight, does your financial structure still work if rates stay here or they edge up? That's why this webinar matters. Wealth is built by strong foundations and good structure, not by guessing the next rate move. And why should you prioritize wealth? Wealth fundamentally gives you more options and flexibility. In my mind, my clients are always after two things. They want a little bit more financial freedom, so more choice around the work they do, how long they work for, and they want security. They do not want to worry about money anymore. It also helps them solve financial challenges more easily and also support their family, leave a legacy, and dream big. And obviously, crucially, to fund your retirement. And to be honest with you, too often people confuse wealth and greed. Growing wealth is essential for your well-being. And the stats they're just not pretty in New Zealand. And this is what we rally against at Enable Me. 44% of us feel ready for retirement, so most aren't. 54% worry about money weekly. That is such a stress. 70% plan to work past retirement, not by choice. And lots of my clients say, oh, I love what I do. I want to keep working. But it's a totally different thing if you design a plan where you work because you want to, not because you have to. And I think growing wealth is just less stress, more choice, better future. It is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And if we want peace of mind and choices, that's where we lean. And I'm going to debunk some wealth misconceptions. You might hear wealth creation is only for the ultra wealthy. It is not. Requires a lot of money to get started. It really doesn't. You should start small, in fact. It's another form of gambling where people lose all their money. That's preposterous. It's only for people with a finance education, and that is entirely untrue. There are rules to all of this. You understand them, you execute them, and then your whole trajectory shifts. And it takes too much time because you have to do it every day. And this one really gets me because why would you not address this? You spend so much time working for money. Why wouldn't you dedicate a little bit of time of your week to try and keep what you've earned and grow it? Really important. And at Enable Me, we have principles, and this is really important to us. Wealth is for everyone. The most important thing you do is start. I don't care where you're at. If you've done well, I want you to do better. If you're starting right at the starting line, that's okay. Any movement is good for us. And you engage an advisor to support your decision making. I think that's really important. We're a nation of DIYers. We don't really like talking about money. Geez, that has not served us. We will happily go to a specialist if we need it for health concerns, but we don't when it comes to money, and we are a little bit suboptimal in that regard. So let's empower each other and really lean into making our situation work for us. And there are lots of different options just at your risk level, and we figure out what you're comfortable with. So that's really important to us. I always say to my clients, I could care less if you invest in property funds. I really couldn't. It's just what will serve you best in the context of your plan and your goals. And that is unique sometimes in this market. So we are dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And to be honest, it's not new. It's very, very normal in the investing environment. There's just a different kind of uncertainty. We're in election year. We have the Middle East conflict. That's a lot. What causes problems isn't volatility. That is the price we pay for a return. It's a lack of preparation. Honestly, a clear plan gives you something to anchor yourself to when headlines get noisy, because sometimes you've got to be brave to stay the course to ensure you can bank those longer term gains. And it honestly helps you to stay the course when things feel uncomfortable, because they will, and act when opportunities appear. The goal is never certainty. If you're after certainty, that is going to be a long road to hoe. It's resilience and confidence in your next decision. A good plan will not remove uncertainty, but it helps you move forward anyway. So let's figure that out together in terms of what that looks like for you. And retirement planning is usually the goal, but it is not step one. Chasing the end point without fixing the basics is really how people stay stuck. Lots of people come in and they're like, tell me where to invest my money. But again, if they don't know what money they have to invest or they don't have as much as they should, well, you're not solving the true problem. And that bottom layer you can see in terms of the graph, that is the part that supports everything else, or it undermines it if it is weak. And wealth, I'll tell you now, it is not built on poor money habits or messy debt. You can't out invest bad cash flow or out earn disorganization. Cash flow, habits, and structure, they come first. When more is coming in that's going out, and debt is controlled, that is when your progress accelerates. And this is the concrete slab, if you will, of your financial life. It's not particularly sexy. I know it's kind of boring, but if you skip it, everything you build on top, in my mind, eventually cracks. Strong foundations, they don't feel dramatic, they feel boring, but they're what makes everything possible. So we're going to figure that out in terms of where you are at the present minute and how do we optimize that to make sure that we get those headwinds going forward, no matter what's happening in the background. So first of all, you've got to figure out who you are and who you're not. Often the biggest obstacle we find for people is they don't have a plan, they don't know what they're capable of, and in the absence of not knowing, they do what they've always done, hoping for the best. So again, we've all got a different tendency and approach to risk. And again, this forms the bedrock of your foundation and assessing whether your plan is fit for purpose. So we all have a different money personality. Some people are shoppers, they derive emotional satisfaction from shopping. Some are savers, so they derive emotional satisfaction from saving. Lots of my clients are plotters. So they're neither here nor there around money, so they don't particularly enjoy spending money, but they're not super great at saving, or somewhere in the middle. And if you have a partner and your finances are combined, this is when sometimes money personalities get a little bit interesting in terms of a household and a plan. So a shopper and a shopper together, they look great, but probably aren't making the financial progress that they should. Savers and a shopper, it's generally a little bit of spice in terms of kind of cute at the beginning, gets jarring together the longer you are together. So there's generally a niggle around finances, and a plotter tends to drift, again, not making the progress that they should. Fine, but not great in terms of momentum. And overlaying this is your approach to risk. And again, I work with lots of individual personalities, but for lots of my savers, for example, they are good at accumulating money. They're not necessarily great at accumulating wealth in terms of taking risk because they're more safety conscious, kind of money under the mattress. Some people are quite adventurous in terms of their money, and sometimes we have to pull them a little bit back in terms of risk to make sure that they can hold their line in terms of when they might need to access that money. And you won't be a dreamer if you're on this webinar tonight. Dreamers think that the universe will provide. You and I both know it won't. We need to make it happen, and how we make that happen is through having a really solid foundation. So knowing who you are and your personality, your approach to risk is a really good starting point. So for example, if you're a shopper, with all the will in the world, likely you're not going to save money at the pace that you should. Generally speaking, you need to have goals that are sexy enough and motivating enough for you to try harder. And again, generally you're okay with a bit of risk. So again, knowing myself means that you craft a plan that you will stick to and which resonates with you in terms of your goals. And we all have different starting points. Um, Sometimes progress starts with an independent objective look at where you are actually starting at. So where are you at from a cash flow perspective? Again, we need to focus on more coming in that is going out. Generally speaking, we know that there is about 15% of inefficiency embedded in anyone's situation, just in terms of lazy money, paying too much interest, having savings and debt doesn't make sense. Let's get them offsetting each other, again, making more progress. Some people have niggly credit card debt, they're paying the minimum repayment. They still think they're okay, but actually that's just showing me that there's a past problem that you can't course correct on. And again, likely you've got some niggly interest. Get rid of the credit cards. They are a drag in terms of financial progress. And again, you've got to understand your goals. What are you aiming for? Because how do you know whether you're on track or not? And that timeline piece is absolutely critical in terms of the strategies that are valid for you and your family in terms of growing wealth. And again, those tendencies that we all have, that's what we pair with your strategy to ensure that you do what needs to be done. Because the most beautiful plan that doesn't resonate with you isn't worth the paper that it's written on. Because again, knowing what to do and doing it are two different things. So again, we focus on action. And I think lots of people are sitting back at the moment because things are uncertain, but there is a cost to that, mark my words. And there is a huge risk with inflation creeping up of just leaving your money in the bank. Inflation is a silent thief of savings. Um, I think back in terms of clients that I've seen in early days, an elderly client with 100K in savings, that was the equivalent to a house, 20 years ago. Now it wouldn't be a deposit in some parts of the country. Inflation erodes the value of cash. You are not being safe by just having your money in the bank. In fact, you are banking a loss because it is not keeping up with the pace of inflation and it will be worth less in the future. It just won't grow your wealth. Investing beats stagnation. And that's really important in terms of a financial plan. We always ensure you have a buffer. That's really important. And that buffer is generally 6 months of expenditure. But even that buffer we want to put to work. But anything over and above this, you've got to get it invested and for it to be protected. So, what is a wealth plan? A wealth plan brings together different asset types and a hold sell strategy that provides cash flow to meet your financial goals. And remember, your plan starts by knowing your starting point. And sometimes it's really hard to independently assess in terms of opportunities, because again, it's just your knowns. And where do you need to land in terms of end game? How long do you have? Because remember, that dictates what strategies are available to you, and not everything's on the table infinitely. Your behavioral tendencies that we've talked about, and the hand that you've been dealt. We need to tailor that in terms of designing a wealth plan that is fit for purpose for you. And getting rid of your mortgage on your owner occupied home, again, having a buffer is a non-negotiable for any financial plan if you come to see me and my team, but also being on track to be mortgage free on any family home as soon as possible is really critical. You don't have to be completely mortgage free to use your property to leverage to grow wealth. But again, that's part of that really solid foundation that we talk about. Often it's one of your biggest cash outflows in terms of mortgage. When it's gone, there's more choice going forward, but also it is a further lever to grow wealth because if you are paying down a mortgage on your home, you are creating equity that you could tap into to potentially buy another property that will grow up, that will grow in value through that next asset cycle. So again, I'm a chartered accountant as well, so I love a good graph. So the impact of paying your mortgage off faster. So average Kiwi buys their first home at about 36 at the moment, and they take about 30 years to pay off their mortgage. Doesn't quite sort retirement. So again, don't care about averages. We're not here to be average. But in terms of being mortgage free at 65, okay, it's a win, but it also means that your money's not going to last very long in essence. So this graph is showing you get mortgage free by 65 and then you run out of funds. You've only got KiwiSaver and your funds run out at 69. So the average KiwiSaver balance in New Zealand is 37,000 at the moment. So again, useful, not enough, not nearly enough to sort retirement. Tip, if you're on the default KiwiSaver rate of 3%, it is automatically going up to 3.5. Please, 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 if at all possible, do not opt to go back down to that 3% unless you can only fund that gap through debt. That is effectively a pay rise for your future self because your employer has to match that 3.5%. It's going to go up to 4% in 2028. Again, we need all the wins we can gather to make sure that we land where we need to. So back to the slide, average Kiwi, mortgage free at 65, runs out of money at 69. Bit of a shit retirement if you ask me. Early mortgage repayment and a wealth plan, non-negotiable if you're working with us at Enable Me. So in this example, we get you mortgage free at 55. How do we do that? We find that lazy money. Remember I said that lazy money, it's generally 15% of your incomings slips through the crack. Little bit of overspending, a lot of paying too much interest to the bank, and that is an issue for New Zealanders. We have super profitable banks, some of the most profitable in the world in terms of interest rates and fees. So make darn sure that we have a good structure and a strategy to pay off your mortgage. How do you do that? You chuck that 15% off your mortgage in an optimal way to ensure that you're bringing it down at the pace that you should. That is creating more opportunities for you. So in this, getting back to the graph, mortgage free by 55 means that you can save more. You've got 10 years to save more. There's really no tricks around this, which means that you've saved more, your money's going to last until 80. Again, no tricks around this. For us, we're not happy with that. We want your money to last at least until 90. That's when we're looking at what else should we be doing. For lots of my clients, that's either investing in property or managed funds. Let's get that position working as hard as possible. I am not saying we're going to invest in mythical things. We know this works and where there is an ordering around what works. So my job for my clients is to ensure they live their best life now and into the future. And we're trying to get them to at least 90 with choice and options. And that goal setting is really important, knowing how much you need. And how I work that out, we figure out together, what does a good life look like to you? What does it cost you? Because in effect, we need to be growing your wealth to a point that feeds that happy life infinitely when you're no longer working. So again, understand that number, and we need to understand the time frame that you have to achieve that, because that opens up options in terms of wealth creation. And again, you know all of this in terms of options, shares, bonds, managed funds, gold, collectibles, digital currencies. I'm not saying these are all good options, but they are options nonetheless. Many ways to grow wealth, not all of them suit your situation, and you've got to know what's right for you. And higher risk can mean higher reward, but it also can mean higher uncertainty. Your strategy needs to balance risk, accessibility, and long-term goals. And again, this little graph shows you the difference. Again, cash, low return, low risk. But what's that not is showing you is with inflation, that means that even with cash, you bank a loss. So if you clock nothing else in this webinar tonight, I hope you clock that. The bigger the savings gap equal the bigger the gains that are needed. And again, if you have a savings gap in terms of where you need to be in retirement, you sometimes have to accept more risk. But again, that well-balanced strategy is balancing that out in terms of what you are capable of and ensuring that you have the ability to hold your line. So I'm going to go really quickly through these options. Lots of people ask me, is KiwiSaver still worth it? Yes. It's deducted from your pay before you see it. If you're employed, contributed by your employer at 3.5% now, as of the 1st of April. Um, Free money. Who doesn't want free money? And again, the government will give you some money. I think it's 25 cents in the dollar up to about 200 odd. If you earn over 180, that's nothing. But it shouldn't be your only option for retirement savings. It's unlikely to provide all the funds you need. So really important. Lots of us wouldn't have saved what we have in KiwiSaver without it. But again, make sure you're in the right fund. Make sure that you are getting the returns that you deserve. Make sure you contribute up to the amount, at least in terms of employer contribution. But again, what else should you be doing in the context of that broader holistic plan? Um, Kiwis love term deposits and short-term savings. Term deposits offer safety and predictability, but come with trade-offs. So good for stability, but not for high growth. Inflation is an important consideration. Your returns might not keep pace. So think about your financial goals. Do your term deposits fit into your overall strategy? That is what I'm asking you to assess. And if you don't know how to do that, then you need to see a qualified financial advisor like me or my team. In terms of you work really hard, make sure that asset position is working as hard as possible for you. Lots of my clients invest in managed funds. I'm a huge advocate of managed funds. It allows for diversification and professional management, but fees can impact returns. So again, you've got to be mindful of that. There's a range of options. And look, your KiwiSaver is like a managed fund, but with rules. So there's a range of options like you're familiar with in terms of your KiwiSaver, from conservative to aggressive to suit different investors. And that just means, well, what is the level of volatility I can accept in terms of my fund, which generally comes down to timeline. And again, if you're not going to access something for 10 years or more, likely it should be a growth fund, not individual advice, just being sensible. And it is important to balance risk and reward. Higher returns come with greater ups and downs. But again, if you have a runway and you don't need to access that thing, you can see out the ebbs and the flows of a market. But again, really understanding that timeline and your goals when you choose that fund. And even I think a bit of a trap is for some of my clients who they work with me and done well, who have, 5 years to retirement and they don't need to access their KiwiSaver at 65. They're not necessarily looking at it going, well, we have to switch it to conservative, because again, in terms of their holistic plan, they don't need to access that KiwiSaver for 10 years or more. So that affects the level of volatility or risk and return that you can take in terms of that investment. Really important. Again, lots of my clients will invest in property, and this is really important in terms of when you are working with Enable Me Coach, we are agnostic. We don't care if you invest in property or funds. It is what will serve you best in the context of your plan. And for most of our clients, they do both. It's just more to where do you lean in terms of age and stage, and what is the gap we're trying to close in terms of retirement. So lots of my clients will invest in property. Why is that? It is seen as, when you look back in time, the least volatile asset class. Rent goes up with inflation, but actually the beauty around property is that it gives you the ability to leverage. You put in your money, the bank puts in their money, and you keep 100% of the gain. That outperforms other asset classes because of that leverage piece, but it is a long-term investment, and you have to buy the right one and have the ability to keep it through a cycle, which in the past has been about 10 years. And again, as an old adage, you never sell a property, not quite true. My clients, we're always looking at, is that property fit for purpose? Has it served its purpose? And should it be switched out in terms of another property or another asset class like managed funds, because we need liquidity because we may be potentially getting closer to retirement? No strategy is lock and leave. It's just what suits you best in the context of your plan. And again, just going, love leverage. Another slide about leverage, just showing you managed fund growth rate at 6%. Asset value of 160,000 is going to give you a return of 9,600. If you put that 160 as a deposit on a $800,000 property at 6%, you're going to get a higher gain. There's no tricks around that. But again, just illustrating it because it's interesting. And I think we need to be really clear on where this goes wrong. How do I say this diplomatically? Oh, well, I'm just going to say it. Not getting the right advice, neighbors, family, and friends aren't financial advisors, and they don't know what's right for you because everyone is different. A lack of diversification, only doing one thing, that is not going to serve you infinitely. Not prioritizing short-term debt, that is such a drag in terms of momentum. Waiting too long to start. Hard, isn't it? Because I always say to my clients, it's never too late, and I truly believe that is the case. But the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. And if you are waiting for a perfect time to start, it's just never going to happen. So best start now. Investing everything without leaving an emergency buffer. I mean, that's just silly. You know that. And making emotional decisions. And just, I think that comes down to having a good plan. And everyone is so deeply human, we understand that. But when you have a clear plan, when you have someone in your corner who can steady your hand and help you to be brave, that is really important to hold your line to get those gains. I was telling our coaches today because we have there's so much anxiety at the moment, and to be honest, I'm not watching the news anymore because it's just scary. But having a good financial advisor in your corner, we are your calm in terms of we have your back. We know the fundamentals, and if you have a good plan, you should be covered if you are working with the right people. And there is no right strategy. I don't care what people tell you, only the one that fits your life, your timing, and your constraints. Um, Comparison is just so expensive. Customization is powerful. It really is. And again, I've been doing this for a very long time, but I love it. The biggest accelerant for many people isn't picking better investments, it's using what they already have more intelligently, especially equity and mortgage access. Most wealth, in my experience, is lost waiting for the right time to start. Progress comes from time in the market, not perfect entry points. Um, this is why Warren Buffett's rule matters. Time and discipline beats cleverness. And the goal isn't to be busy or sophisticated, it's to have a strategy you can stick through cycles. Simple, well structured, and sustained beats complex and perfectly timed every time. It really does. And we've seen every type of position, every starting point, good, bad, ugly. And it is such a thrill to work through those stages with people to see them actually live their best lives and also help their families to live their best lives. And if today has highlighted anything, it's this. The environment has changed. Of course it does. Doing nothing is a decision, and you've got to sit with that. The question isn't whether the OCR moves next time. The question is whether your plan is still fit for purpose. If rates stay higher, inflation persists, and costs keep rising, this is the moment to be decisive, not reactive. You have to be intentional. So, love to invite you along to a financial consultation with a coach like myself. We're up and down the country. We do video consults face to face to give you an independent expert assessment of where you're heading, what needs tightening, and what needs to change so your plan supports the life you actually want to live, not just to muddle through. If you book tonight, we have a special offer for you. It's a 90-minute consultation or 60 to 90-minute jump on the financial scales. Usually that is $400 if you book it tonight. I think, Emma, by midnight, it's $100. No obligation beyond the session, just clarity, direction, and next steps. Playing the long game starts with taking action. So this is your invitation to do exactly that. So I have a wee QR code which you are welcome to scan. Again, if you do it after tonight, Emma, I think it's 149. If you just book tonight, it's 100. Great deal. Again, take action. So, so important. Right, so we had a ton of great questions submitted prior. We hopefully have had some submitted live. So I'm going to hand over to Emma, our lovely producer. Emma, hit me.
Thank you so much, Katie, for your time and for sharing your expertise. And yes, that's correct. If you book by midnight tonight, April the 8th, you'll get your consultation for $100. Any made after that is 149. You got that
Great.
completely correct. Nice one. Um, and we now, yep, like you said, have time for a Q&A from our audience. Thank you to everybody who sent in a question. So the first question I have is, any tips on building wealth while trying to manage the current cost of living and all
Yeah.
of the changing things?
Yes, yeah. And again, we've got the saying, we control the controllables and we get clarity first. So you've got to know what's coming in and what's going out, then be intentional. Money without a goal, it will just get spent. So automate the goal so progress happens in the background, even when life feels expensive. Really important.
Thanks, Katie. And
Welcome.
the second question would be this one you sort of answered a little bit, but I guess
Oh yeah.
just wrapping it up again.
Okay.
Is property still a good investment option?
Yeah. That old chest up. We all at every point of the cycle we keep asking this question. Um, in my opinion, property remains a strong, relatively stable asset. Um, just reiterating, rents tend to rise with inflation, and leverage does such a lot of the heavy lifting with this asset class, and that's what makes it powerful. But it still needs to be part of a broader plan. So it's not the only thing you do, but is definitely a really important wealth accelerator in terms of your overarching holistic plan.
Thank you for that. And is it best to pay down your mortgage faster or invest if you have some money to use?
Yeah. And again, for most of my clients, they do both. Um, Focusing on just one comes with an opportunity cost. So, my advice for my clients is generally to reduce your mortgage to a level that gives you flexibility, then you invest alongside it. I think wealth is built through balance, never extremes, honestly.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Um, what's another good one? There was one that came in live, which was
Mm,
just, I guess you've also said kind of answered this a little bit, but is it
Mm,
a good time to start investing now? And there have been a few in the chat that have come through that have said that as well. It's like now with the
yes,
world being as it is it still a good
yes,
time to start investing?
yes, yes. So important. And it's so interesting, isn't it? That psychology around money, because again, effectively, most asset classes are on sale right now. We're so hard to act. But when it's expensive and everything's rising, we're like, woohoo, game on. So again, you invest in the right thing and you're playing the long game, then you can hold your line no matter what happens. And this is the time when money is made. And yes, I understand uncertainty, but again, if you stick to principles and you understand risk, you are going to be better off longer term. And if you're waiting, there is a cost. There is absolutely a cost in that you are not getting the returns that you deserve. In fact, if it's just languishing, doing nothing, I had a client with a revolving credit in positive. So it wasn't even offsetting debt. It was like in positive. So they weren't even getting interest. It's like, please, can we at least offset some of the debt that you're paying interest on? So again, complacency, not doing something, that is the cost. And you got to clock that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm going to say that's all the time that we have, sorry, all the questions that we have time for. Sorry. Sorry that we can't answer everybody's questions. I think you've covered most of the questions
I
that came
tried
through though,
to.
which is awesome. We do encourage if you do have any like lingering questions after tonight's webinar or about our financial consultations, email us via info@enable.me, or you can call us at the number on our website. And I'll hand back over to you, Katie, to finish off.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I think clarity really does beat comfort and action beats waiting. So book tonight. Have a lovely evening and all the very best. Take care.